We're live. Hello, everybody. Jack Olmsted. I am the digital reporter from Port Townsend, Washington. I'm a pickleball player, and today, whoops, I've got the camera on Gale Leach, the author of the Art of Pickleball. She wrote that back in 2004. How are you doing today, Gale?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm just fine. How's the weather in Arizona?
We're warming up. We're warming up. I know you've seen the weather reports, I'm sure, about people frying here in the desert, but so far so good. We're in triple digits, but not too high.
Tell us about the Art of Pickleball. How did you get started? Why did you write the book? Can you take us back? I guess you wrote it in 2004, 2003?
A little later than that. I think it actually came out in 2005, I thought, but my memory back then.
Right, I think it came out in 2005, but you had to write it. You had to spend time compiling all the wonderful information that you packed in between the covers.
Yeah, there's a lot of information in there, and a lot of it didn't come from me. It came from many other people. Yeah, the research took, it was probably 6 months of research and probably another 6 months of writing.
Why did you think the world needed a book on pickleball back 2004? I mean, when did you come up with the idea that, gee, I need to write a book?
The idea kind of came by itself. When I moved to Arizona, I had never heard of pickleball like so many people, and we lived in an active adult community at Sun City Grand. Um, and I fell in love with pickleball immediately and went looking for a book about how to become a better player. Prior to my retirement, I had been a technical writer, and nobody reads manuals, but I used to write manuals. And so I was one of those who actually reads about things I need to know more about.
What kind of manuals did you write?
I worked for biotech companies when I was working most often, and I used to write the manuals for the instruments they made, which were things used in hospitals or healthcare laboratories, anything from centrifuges all the way through DNA synthesizers, lots of really fun stuff, foremost genetic stuff that they were doing and testing. And that was really
so the stuff that you wrote, is that like the fine print that nobody reads, or is it like large print so that the technicians understand how to operate the equipment?
They were operation manuals, yeah. And so it was how a tech would know how to run blood through this machine and come out with a sample reading that they could take back to a doctor. So, but that was a lot of fun, and I did that for years, and then I did it on my own with my own company for almost 20 years, and then when I retired, there I was. But what happened was I went looking for a book on how to become a better player, and I bought Mark Friedenberg's book, and it was good. It had information in it that helped me, but it wasn't the book I looked for. I just wanted more information yet, and I started taking notes when I would hear something from a player, and the players were very gracious. These were people who'd been playing for a long time up in Seattle, who had then retired and moved down there and brought the sport with them. They were great. They would, take me under their wing and tell me things, and I would keep copious notes. And I suddenly realized that I was beginning to write the book that I had started to look for. So I gave that some thought and said, well, why not? And that's how it was born, if you will.
But now you had never written a book before.
I had never written a book on my own other than all these manuals that I had been doing for years. And I'd never published a book on my own. So I wasn't worried about that. I knew how it was done. And because I had gone through the publishing process through my work and on my own. And that I wasn't concerned about. But of course, I wasn't a great player. So I needed to get information that would help people far more than I knew. And so I took all these notes and I started getting names of people to call all over the country, talk to people in Florida, talk to people in some of the other active adult communities nearby. They were all very gracious and sent me lots of great information. One of the most fun things is how much conflicting information I got from different folks. Everything from how to hold a paddle whether you should use tennis grips, whether you should, pickleball wasn't like that. No, you shouldn't do that. Whether you should, so much conflicting information. And it was fun to try and sort through and find the most common denominator among the things that people said. And I put in information that was conflicting sometimes where it made sense to me, and said, not everybody agrees on this. So here's your choice, go do what feels good to you, because really that's where the sport was, and I think still is. Everybody does it differently. But finally I got to a point where I felt I had enough to publish the book, and I did. Got some help from someone who was kind of an interim between a quote real publisher who would just take my book outright and give me royalties, and somewhere between that and publishing it completely on my own. And she published it first under the auspices of her own name, and later I took it over and got my own publishing company started, and that's where that went. Revised it again, I think in 2008, when we had a major rules change, and it seemed to be right because more information had come to light. And I keep taking notes as time goes by when I learn new things or people share stuff with me or I see it now on the internet. And so that's how the book has grown. It's now in 4th edition, and I'm still taking notes for 5th edition when the time is right. And that's it.
How did you take notes back in 2004? Are you doing it old school with the pen and paper? Or are you taking pictures? Or is it audio? How are you taking notes?
Well, I did do everything from watching and taking video, watching people play and taking videos. But a lot of it is just handwritten notes as the time comes up. I carry a pad with me all the time. That's just normal for a writer. And most of it was that. And now, as I say, I find things on the internet, and I've got a lot of marked pages, and, I contact people and talk to them. And when I see things in videos that I think would be pertinent, I'll get in touch with the folks who post them. And so that's it.
And so these notes and the research that you're doing, do you make that available for people, or you got it in a closed file for your 5th edition?
Well, I guess it's in a closed file as much as that for now, but I do post things on my blog, GaleLeach.com. I have 3 blogs there, as a matter of fact. I have one for just pickleball tips. I have another blog, which is Gale Leach author, if you will, because now I'm writing different kinds of books. I'm writing fiction as well. So and then I have a personal blog, which doesn't have much in it because I just don't spend the time putting things there. But Pickleball Tips has information that I find valuable, that I think other people might want to know, or it's just a synthesis of things that I find that, a lot of that may go into the next edition or may already be in a previous one, but it's things that I think would be of value to folks. So I post there. I used to post more often. Now it's probably once a month. I get busy with other kinds of writing, and so it's really a little less than it was.
So I'm on your blog page right now.
That's not my blog page. That's just the Pickleball page. If you go to back up in the menu under Pickleball, you'll find Pickleball Tips, and that's a blog.
I thought I was on Pickleball Tips right here. Pickleball Tips.
Click there.
Yeah. Oh. Huh. Okay, here we are.
That's the blog where I have various tips, and there's a section down on the right-hand side below the subscription box there that lists them in an archive and by category. So if you're interested in something about the backhand, for example, you can click that, and it'll take you to all my posts that have anything to do with backhand, and so on. Otherwise, you can just scroll through and read them from most recent to least recent.
Your last post was in March, and it was talking about tennis elbow.
May.
Oh, this is in May. I'm sorry, in May.
Yeah, I had a man contacted me about something that was in the book. As a matter of fact, I had put in a website reference to some exercises you could do to help combat tennis elbow, which I had suffered from for a while. And I had found the exercises very valuable. So I shared them in the book, and he wrote to me saying, the link, it doesn't work anymore. And can you tell me where I might find another one? So I hunted, and I did. And that went in my correction file for the next edition of the book, as a matter of fact. I shared that with other people too. So that was what spawned this particular blog post.
It sounds like you like the hunting down new information. You like the research.
I do like research. I do.
Well, that's good, because a lot of people they benefit from the hard work that you put into tracking down this information.
Well, I hope so. It wouldn't be worth doing if somebody didn't read it and get something valuable out of it. So I can't see a reason to write a book otherwise, or to write a blog.
People can buy your book on Amazon as an ebook and also as a paper edition.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, that's true. And they can buy it almost everywhere, in both forms. The book is also available from me. If you want a signed copy, I will send signed copies out. But otherwise, just about any bookseller should be able to get it if they don't already have it.
Do you go to tournaments and have a table where you will sell your book in signed copies?
I haven't done that because around here I used to have a woman who carried my book with her. She had asked me if she could sell the book for me, and I said sure, because she used to travel to far more numerous tournaments than I went to. She went down to Casa Grande, and she went to Utah, and I didn't have the ability to do that and to attend all these tournaments, but that was her business. She sold a lot of pickleball related items and paddles that her husband made. That was Linda Christensen, Spike Christensen's wife. I don't know if you know of him, but just recently Linda passed away. It was a very sad day when she passed. And so I am currently trying to work out an arrangement with someone else who would be similarly likely to go to more tournaments than I do. But for that reason, I never sold my own books, because I didn't want to undersell Linda. But that's in process now. I don't know how it's going to work out. Actually, anybody who would like to sell books for me, I wholesale books to people who can resell with a resale license and so on. So if anyone is interested and happens to hear this, contact me. My information's on my website.
Now that's the paper edition. How about the e-version?
The e-version is available through Amazon for Kindle and through Barnes & Noble for Nook. I think it's also on iBooks, I believe. It should be. So I haven't gone into all the other myriad ebook venues, but just left it at that because they're the most common.
Since your book has been out since 2005, we're talking 11 years, are you a celebrity? Do people want to get their pictures taken with you at tournaments because they know that you are the person that helped them up their level of play?
It's happened. It's kind of embarrassing because I don't play as much as I once did, and I'm still not a 5-0 player. So how can that be when you write the Art of Pickleball? But all I can say is I know the information in there is good. It came from good people, and it came from good things that I do know. So anyway, yeah, it's happened, and it's very enjoyable at the same time that it's embarrassing. Celebrity is not the reason I wrote this book. It's been fun, though. I will say fun things have happened. I got a note from a man who was serving in Iraq. This was a number of years ago now. And he wrote to me with a picture of himself holding up the Art of Pickleball, and they had put a court with a net. I think it was, a handmade net on this piece of concrete somewhere where they were stationed in Iraq. and he wanted me to see that they were using the Art of Pickleball to keep them straight on the rules. And it was just incredible to know that, the book travels all over the world. And that the first time I got a sale somewhere outside of the United States, we were celebrating. It's like, I can't believe this, it's gone worldwide, but it is out there, and that's pretty exciting.
It sounds like it's the Bible for a lot of people, the Pickleball Bible.
Well, I think it was for a long time. When we were talking earlier, I mentioned that there are other books out there now, and good books, and I'm glad to see it. I mean, eventually it had to happen. The USAPA has issued its own Bible about the sport now, and it's a very good book. So I don't know how much longer the Art of Pickleball will be the number one. And that's fine as long as the word gets out there. As I say, I didn't write it for the celebrity, or it's nice to get revenue from it, but really it was just to get a book out there about the sport that I felt was the book that I wanted to find. And so it's out there, and I'm happy.
Can you talk about the new edition? We're talking about the fourth edition here. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about some of the changes in the fourth edition?
Well, obviously rules keep changing, so that has to be updated, and that's an impetus for some of the previous editions too. But as the sport grows, just so many small nuances are different. The balls are different. We have new kinds of paddles. There's just lots of things. One of the things I want to do in this edition, more research is necessary to make that happen, is to get a little more advanced strategy, and also to talk about some other kinds of practice that can be done. There is some of that in there. People have asked me to write a book about just drills. Well, I don't want to do that. I think there are some books out there now about that too, but I want to be comprehensive at the same time that there's a limit to how long the book can be, and still make it viable. But I want to bring some more advanced strategies in for sure. And I'm not sure I can tell you specifics without going and digging in the file. And there are always corrections that pop up too, like the link I told you that was broken. And you have to go back and check all those things and make sure they still work. And, so that's really what it's about.
Back in 2004, when you were doing research on your book, the internet was not everywhere like it is today, on your phone, on your tablet, on your computer. Do you find that maybe people will just get the information through search engines off the internet, kind of like what you're doing through your research?
Absolutely, and more of that is out there, and great videos. When I did the book originally, I wished that I had the capability to do videos and to put them out there as DVDs, because that is such a much better way to teach, I think, than the written word. I mean, I write and I love words, but it's so much better to see something done while it's being explained, I think. And so video is truly the best mechanism. And more we have great players showing through their videos how to execute shots, how to do things that they're trying to explain. And I really think that ultimately those are going to replace a lot of what we find in books in general. I mean, you look at sites like Instructables that teach you how to do everything, how to change the plumbing under your sink to repairing your car or baking a cake. It's a much better vehicle. So yeah, I expect people are going to do it, and a lot of these are free. So why would you pay good money for a book when you can get the information for free on the internet? I'm pretty cheap, and I do a lot of that, but I will go out and buy a book when it's something that I want to have with me, and when I can't really go hunting in my phone. I don't know. I am definitely a proponent of ebooks also in my own reading. That's what I do primarily. I hardly ever buy books in physical form anymore. So, things are changing, and I try to change along with them as I can, but I'm not still able to make videos. It's not something I do well. or want to invest in. So I'm going to leave that to other people. And
You have a wonderful YouTube channel. Who's posting those videos up on your YouTube channel? I guess I can go out. Do I have it here?
well, I don't know how wonderful my channel is, but
I mean, you got a lot of a variety of interests, not just pickleball.
oh well, mostly it's me on stage.
You're singing
Yeah, yeah.
and you're traveling. I think Muskrats. You were at a compound, a zoo.
Oh, the meerkats.
Meerkats. I'm sorry, meerkats.
Yeah. Well, that's just a personal uh, site, really. People go to it and they comment on it and so on. But I really don't have anything pickleball related up there except for the promotional video I made for the.
Yeah, I'm showing the promotional video right now.
Yeah. Yeah,
And it looks like you got some editing, and I think you got some music behind it.
I do. I do. And
A
this
lot
was
of quick edits.
yeah.
I
This
think
was
you got some skills here.
well, this kind of video I can do. This is not like taking a camera out and doing video though. So
You do take, let's see, actually here on your video, we've got a picture of you. Yeah, right here. There you are.
yeah, back in the day.
Back in the day with your camera and your smile
Yeah,
and your hat, keeping the sun off your face.
most definitely.
Now, this camera that you're holding, it's probably a digital camera. It takes stills and also videos.
Yes, it did. No,
So anyway,
I took videos of play with that camera. Um, that was, in fact, I was the only one doing it at that particular time. For this was local tournaments, just in the community where I lived. Nobody else was videotaping them, and I really thought I wanted to have copies of the play again to learn from. So that's what was going on there.
yeah, I didn't see on your YouTube channel any of your play, any pickleball
I don't
videos of you.
have videos of me playing. Nobody ever took videos of me. I was always taking videos of everybody else.
Oh, because in your book, at the very beginning, one of the things you suggest beginners do is take videos of themselves,
Mm-hmm.
because what you think you're doing is probably not what you're actually doing. So if you take videos of yourself and you watch it back, then you can basically be your worst critic.
Absolutely, it's a great thing to do, and I did do that, but I never put those up for anybody else to see. So
I see. Okay. So anyway, you do have a YouTube channel, and you are all over the social media. If we go back to your website here, you're on Pinterest, you're Twitter, Facebook, G+, Google+. How are you doing on social media? Is it too much, or is it manageable?
no, it's totally unmanageable. I have a presence in all of those places, but frankly, lately I have been not out there nearly as much as I used to try to be. I still post on Facebook, but not as often. And I'm finding that it's getting a little overwhelming. I have turned to something I always wanted to do, and that was to write fiction. Once I had the Art of Pickleball out there and it won an award, which I was very proud of. And I thought, okay, I really, beyond all the manuals I used to write that people said were good, now I have proof, if you will, that I write well. And I said, okay, I'm going to head toward fiction. And I had planned on writing books for adults. I don't know what, whether thrillers or some kind of adventure story. Um, and instead, the idea that came to me was a novel for children. So it was a great idea, and I couldn't let it go. So I decided, okay, I'll write this novel for kids, and then I'll get on with other kinds of fiction. Well, that novel for kids turned into a number of novels for kids, and now I'm working on a novel for young adults, which is going to be the first of a series. And the writing at least for me, isn't a fast process. I tend to be pretty much of a perfectionist. I don't want it to go out there in a haphazard manner. It has to be good, and I have to really believe in it. Otherwise, I don't want to put it out. And so it takes time. Research also, even though these are fantasy stories, that's the genre I seem to prefer. There's still research involved, lots and lots of it. So it takes time, and I've been 2 years or more into this particular book, and I'm still only in the first review stage because I got a lot of other things I'm doing at the same time. I'm singing, I'm playing musical instruments, I'm, doing stuff just in my life because I'm supposed to be retired. And
Yeah, I was going to say, when are you going to retire? It doesn't sound like you've slowed down, or I guess slow down and enjoy, and smell the flowers.
well, I'm smelling these flowers. I'm really enjoying working with the the kids in the schools. You talked about the art of pickleball causing me to be a celebrity. What's really caused that has been the books for the kids. I go to schools and I talk to kids who've read my books, and it's like they can't wait to get my autograph. And there's something really magical about that. But the books are good books. They carry a great message. I'm so proud to be able to say that there are some children out in the world now who read. After reading my books, they have asked to go to the library for the first time. Um, they go home and talk to their parents about the books. And the parents come and talk to the teacher and say, is this my child? What have you done? The child wants to read. And that's an intensely gratifying experience. So it, how could I not want to do that, retired or not? It's truly wonderful. But anyway, that's more where my focus has been lately too. So getting onto social media to post about pickleball and getting onto social media to post about, my books and other things. I want to spend my time writing much more than I want to spend it on social media. So my presence there has really fallen back some. But in order to let people know what I'm doing, you still have to get out there and do that. So I try to balance it as best I can.
How did you make that transition? Your very first book you ever wrote, Art of Pickleball. How did you jump from that to children's fiction writing? Did you just wake up one day and say, I got an idea, I can do that?
Yeah, pretty much. It took a long time to find an idea I felt was worthy of spending the time to write. And when that idea for the kids' book came, I said, okay, this is good enough. I'll do this one.
Are you married?
I am.
And is your husband as active as you are?
No, and he wishes I would really retire, I think, just because I'm always busy. And I think, I'm going here, going there, going to authors groups, doing things. And I think he would rather I just kind of relaxed and watched TV more. But, we are the people we are. And I've been trying to balance that too. So we do like to travel. We have an RV and we have 4 pets and they go with us. But writing is something I can do anywhere. So unfortunately, I take it with me. And
So you go in an RV, but you have an office in the RV with a computer, and so your husband's probably driving, and you're in the back working.
I pretty much just sitting with my laptop in the front, because we have a 5th wheel that we tow with a truck. So the dogs go with us in the 5th wheel. I mean, in the truck, and the cats ride in the 5th wheel. And when we stop, we're a big happy family.
You're down in Arizona. You're close to Surprise, Arizona. That's where USAPA is located now. It's kind of the Mecca. Nationals are down there in November. What's it like living at the pickleball Mecca?
Well, it's a great place to live. It really is. Surprise is a wonderful city, and it's still growing, and I imagine it will keep doing that. I'm trying to remember, I was a member of the board of the USAPA back in 2006, 7, 8. I don't remember. And it's a great group of people, and gosh, how it's grown. I mean, and how from literally one person's idea from Mark Friedenberg, who, brought that to be, and helped to make, it what it is today. I mean, it's truly phenomenal, and he's to be congratulated for everything he's done for this sport. Um, it's a great group. It really is.
Can you talk a little bit about your time being a board member of the USAPA? What was your responsibility?
I was working the newsletter at that time, and that sort of made sense. Handled secretarial duties for a while. So but we would get together in somebody's home, and those who couldn't attend, who weren't here in Surprise, and we did have members who either would go back to Washington, which is primarily the other Mecca at the time. We would meet via Skype. And in those days, it wasn't what it is today. And sometimes the microphone would cut out and you could barely hear people. And sometimes there was no video, but, we managed to get it done. But we had forming some of the things that today are routine. The teaching in the schools, I remember that was a big deal. It had just started up, and getting people involved as ambassadors. All of that was happening at the time that I was a board member there. And you look at what's going on today, and you think, well, how could that never have been, there? But the sport was very tiny still then, and compared to now. I remember when they first started gathering the history of the sport too, and trying to do the research and getting back to, the founders and the original court and doing all of that. That wasn't all that long ago, and it's amazing how it's come.
The USAPA newsletter is morphing into the Pickleball magazine. What do you think of the Pickleball magazine?
I think it serves a need, and it's been something that was bound to happen. My view of this is that it's a changing, growing entity. Pickleball, we were talking about this before you went on air today. Pickleball is something that will continue to change. And a lot of people that I've talked to seem to be bothered by that recently. And I think that's in part due to the introduction of a sport where we have professionals now. And that is difficult for some people to deal with because it changes the face of it significantly, I think, when you now have money involved and you have, it's no longer just something you do for fun. There are people whose job it is to travel the world and play pickleball now. And that's relatively new in the last, couple of years, I think, 2-3 years. So you have the folks who play in small communities and, who are still trying to get their friends to know what pickleball is on the one end of the spectrum. And you have people whose job it is to play pickleball on the other. And getting those two to mesh together isn't as easy as it might be. We're going through growing pains, and it hurts a little bit. But I don't see it as something that you can buck. It's gonna keep changing. It has to grow. They've modeled the USAPA in some ways after the USTA, I believe, and how they did what they did. And I used to look at the USTA and think about, well, we've got professional tennis players. We've got, all the opens that happen everywhere all over the world. And we'll be there someday in pickleball. And I could see it coming. So I don't know. I see it as a natural evolution. And something we just have to live with.
Can you talk about the evolution of paddles? I know that you updated your book on paddles. Mm-hmm. Have paddles changed in the last 11 years?
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, coming from a piece of wood to, the discovery of using the composite materials out of airplanes to make paddles. I mean, you use what's around and what you found in the beginning. My son got involved in pickleball and was madly in love with the sport for a long, long time. He doesn't play much now, but he started working on trying to come up with materials for pickleball paddles. And there were a lot of people doing this. Well, I mean, I came from the era where you could just make a paddle out of anything and go out and play. There weren't rules and restrictions on anything other than how big it was, if I remember, and maybe how thick. We used to put decals all over the face of the paddles. My husband's were pictures of buxom women from fantasy cartoon magazines. I mean, it was just hysterical what you could do in the day. But the things change again. You have to standardize. But we went from wooden paddles through all these composite materials, and everything is going so fast now as more and more people get involved and more people have expertise. Again, it just has to change, and with the need to find things that are more quiet, the need breeds new developments. And I know that people have talked about quiet balls now and quieter paddles, so it'll happen.
Can you talk a little bit about the balls? We're having a rule change on the balls where some balls that were legal, now they're illegal.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what I can really say about that.
Well, you put it in your book, didn't you? Talking about the balls.
Balls being illegal.
Well, just the balls changes in general in terms of the rules.
The rules keep changing, and rightly so, because as people discover that either the rules aren't clear enough or allow leeway that doesn't promote the benefit of the sport, that's when you have to have a rule change. I think just recently I shared, I believe on Facebook, a video that was made that Steve Paranto had put out there about his suggestion for a rules change that I agree with. And so, if these things come to be, and if the board finally, decides to take some action on it and so on, and some of it may come from pressure, some of it may come from what I believe is common sense, but everybody's got a different way to go on these, and rules are slow to change for a good reason. They work fairly well as they are, and there's no reason to change something just for the sake of change. But if it's going to improve the sport or make it better in a way that makes sense, I think it's a good idea to pursue
it. That's true, or everybody wants to take the high road. I guess my issue is when there's a rule that is just there not to help the game, but to help industry or companies, and they keep it there not to enhance the game, but to help industry and companies. And that one rule that I'm referring to is no holes in the wooden paddle. The reason why they have no holes in the wooden paddle is because they don't want the wooden paddle to be lighter to compete with the composites. That was the reason why the rule was put in there in the first place. And now that they know that, they aren't going to change no holes in the paddles. They like it the way it is. They like that composite paddles are composite paddles and wood paddles are wood paddles. They're heavy. They're heavy. There's a big, huge slice discrepancy between them, and that's because of the weight. That can all go away by putting holes in the paddles. But anyway, that's kind of how do the board members decide to change rules? Is it a democratic process, or is it one person that makes the decision to say we're going to do it this way? That's it.
Well, at least when I was a board member, it was a vote. I'm assuming it hasn't changed.
And it's a vote within the board of directors, or is it a vote with ambassadors, or?
I can tell you today because I'm not a member of the board. At that time, I'm talking a lot of years ago now. It was, I believe, they would put the rule out as they do now for people to discuss and take feedback. And that seems appropriate. And once they had enough feedback and they could talk amongst themselves, I believe it was just a vote of the board. But don't hold me to that because I don't know what they're doing today.
Well, I'm just trying to understand how it happened in your day. which 2007, 2006. I mean, we're talking 9, 10 years ago.
Right. I believe it was a fair process then. It was as fair as it could be at the time, and I'm sure it still is. You know, the job of the rules person is not an easy job. I mean, you get hit with all kinds of questions, and I've been guilty of doing the same thing. I've written to Dennis a number of times saying, "Hey, what about this? You ought to have said it this way." And I'm a word person. It bothers me when the rule could be written more clearly or in better English. And, I make these suggestions. And most of the time, they go unanswered because what is there is clear enough. If it's something in the case of the thing I was talking about with Steve and, the serve, I feel that's important and should be looked at, but that's my personal belief. And, everybody's entitled to their own way of looking at this. So.
Well, they can look at it, but then when you have when you have a rule and it has to do with the serve, the way you start the game of tournament play, then you can have your belief, but you're going to have to follow the rule, regardless if you think it's fair or not fair.
In this particular case, I think it's worth trying to have a discussion about this because the rule, as far as I'm concerned, is impossible to enforce. And I would not want to be a referee and have to say whether a ball at the moment of impact is below somebody's belly button when I can't see their belly button, and then beyond that, whether or not the paddle is below the wrist joint, because paddles vary in size, and it's a very unclear way of going about it. So
it's interesting because I interviewed Steve, and he's the one that talked about that on a live stream, and then he went out and made his own video to make it more clear. But he understands the rules. He's been playing pickleball for 42 years. His father invented the materials that we are now playing with, so his roots are deep in pickleball. I mean, he's got a video of him playing pickleball when he was 22 years old in short, way back in the day, with wooden paddles. But he understands the rules, and so he takes advantage of the rules. When he plays doubles, his doubles partner is 6'6". He's 6'6", and with his wingspan, his belly button is way above the net. He can hit with much more power, and when he's at the net, his paddle can touch the net. So because he plays with a large person, a tall person, they win. They are on the podium all the time, and that's not just because he's a tall person, but they take advantage of the rules a little bit, where it does favor the rules as they are now favor a taller person, and Steve understands that, and that's probably one of the reasons why he selected his friend, which I think goes back about 40 years. It's not like he just picked him because he was tall. They've got a bond, but he understands that when you have a tall player, you do have an advantage through serving and through volleying.
In every sport, you have advantages based on size or other attributes. I look at swimming, where being tall is an advantage. Look at gymnastics, where being small is an advantage.
Basketball, obviously.
You're not going to take a person like me at nearly 6 feet tall and not necessarily of a slim build anymore and expect me to go and do balance beam and win. It's just not going to happen, much as I may enjoy it. But you're going to, my youngest son who was involved in pickleball is 6'9". And
6'9"?
6'9".
Wow.
When he stands at the net, he has the same issue. I mean, he can stretch from side to side, and he's covered the court.
Right.
So, yeah, there's an advantage by size for sure. But whether or not, Steve chose a partner for that, I don't know. But certainly it is an advantage. But there's nothing really you can do about that. Every sport's going to have that. And no matter
Well,
how you change the
well,
rules,
then you have rules that say it's not by age, but it's by height. Only kind of like when you go to Disneyland, it says you have to be this tall in order to ride this ride. You go to the tournaments and you say, okay, all the 6'6" players are going to play with 6'6" players, and all the 4'2" players are going to play with 4'2" players, or within kind of a height range, knowing that height gives a definite advantage to people. But
well, I've
we
known,
don't do that. What we do is we look at your age, we look at your driver's license, and say, okay, you can go into this field right here because of your age, not because of the height. And the balls are determined upon indoor and outdoor. They're not determined upon the playing surface that you're on, whether it's wood, concrete, carpet, rubber, a variety of surfaces. They just have the balls as indoor balls, outdoor balls, no question about the surface, because there are some concrete surfaces that are indoors, and it's really, do you play with an outdoor ball because it's indoors, or do you play with the indoor ball although you're on a concrete surface? So the balls, that is very confusing in terms of what they're trying to get to. Indoor, outdoor, no, it should be surface compliant. So anyway, there's all this gray area, all this discussion. Oh, anyway, go ahead.
well, over time, even that may come. I mean, I can see that that's something that maybe will be addressed at some point in the future. But thinking, two things come to mind. First of all, I'm thinking of the horse race that's coming up here. And a friend of mine breeds horses and races horses. And he had a post on Facebook earlier today about his horse is going to be running at Santa Anita, and that it's going to be, I forget, a grass track or something, and his horse runs well in grass, so he's expecting that it'll do well, and he's going to put some money on it and so on. I'm thinking about horses, who have to go out on a muddy track, who hate mud, and it's just the way it is in the sport. If it rains that day, well, so be it. Your horse isn't going to probably come in first because it rained. It's the same in pickleball. Sometimes you're going to have tall people, sometimes you're not. But the second point is that I have known some very short people, women in particular come to mind, who are incredibly good on the pickleball court and can run rings around people like me who are tall enough and should be able to, do very well on the court too because of size. They beat me hands down.
Well, we see that in tennis all the time, and we see that the top tennis players are tall. And they're muscular. I mean, they work out. And then you see these Italians that come out that are 4'2",
right.
and they, they go high up in the professional rankings, but they're tired at the end of the day. They are running back and forth against this power.
But there again, they have the speed and quickness that somebody who's large like me might not have. So I think things balance out, and you're going to get good athletes and not so good athletes.
But in terms of longevity in the tennis world, the small, fast players, they don't last as long as the tall, strong players. They are more prone to injury, and they burn out quicker. I mean, the two Italians that went to the finals of the USA or the U.S. Open, as soon as they came in 1-2, what did they do? They retired. They said, "This is it." They made $1 million. One made $2 million, and the other one made $1 million because they reached the final, and then they retired. It's like, we're done. Whereas the taller players, they continue to play and they continue to win, and they, they're playing for history. Can we get back to let's talk about you playing pickleball today. How is that going?
Today, not so well. The last time I played pickleball was, let's see, I guess it'll be 4 weeks on Friday. to the day I fell and broke my hip.
How did you fall and break your hip?
We were playing indoors. They open an indoor court here in our community because it gets so hot in summer. And so I went down and joined a group of 3 other women to go play a great game of pickleball. And 10 minutes into the game, I tripped over my own shoes. I am not known for being the most graceful all the time. My husband will tell you that I have my clumsy moments, and he's right. So anyway, it was just one of those things. It wasn't the fault of pickleball, and no, I didn't run backward, and no, I didn't reach too far, and no, I didn't just feel like I was 18 and I could do it, although those thoughts are in my head like everyone else. But no, I simply tripped. One of my shoes caught on the other one, and I couldn't move my feet fast enough, and I soared up into the air and landed full force on my hip.
Oh, wow.
It broke, and that was no fun. So they called an ambulance, and off I went to the hospital. And the next day, I had a new half of a hip, and it's healing up very well. But I have a few more weeks of rehab to go, and then I am hoping I will have the gumption to get back out in the court. That's the plan. But
Is that what you want to do? You just want to pick yourself up and go, or are you going to be a little bit more cautious about being physically active like that? Maybe walking would be more your...
Well, a lot of it's going to depend. I haven't yet seen the surgeon who did the operation, and I will be seeing him next week. And so a lot of it's going to depend on what he says. I had hip surgeries already prior to this for a problem when I was quite young, and so I don't know. Some of it is going to be based on what the surgeon tells me and whether or not it's sensible to get back on the court. Because certainly I don't want to break my hip again, and
or any other bone in your body.
And frankly, I have a connective tissue disorder. It's an autoimmune disease that a lot of people have. It gives me symptoms somewhat like lupus, so I tend to be rather achy in my joints anyway. So all of this together, it just has prohibited me from playing pickleball the way I would like to already. I can't go out in the sun for long periods of time, which is difficult living here in Arizona. So already I was not playing pickleball tournaments because I couldn't be out in the sun or in the heat for periods of time. I can go out early in the morning or at night, but it doesn't lead to being able to be actively involved in pickleball the way I would like to be. So I had turned to other things, and writing being one, which I can do indoors. And so
you can do indoors, and you can do it convalescing from a broken hip.
Yeah, exactly. So there you are. That's my pickleball history is not one of the best players for a number of reasons. So I can blame it on that and say, well, I would have been a 5-0 except.
The Nationals are coming up in November. Do you have plans on being there?
I hope so. Yeah, I probably won't go every day, but I do want to go down and see the games.
Are you going down there with your notebook and taking notes and video camera?
Absolutely. And there are people I like to see, so yeah.
Well, they say that one of the things about pickleball is all the nice people and the social aspect.
Absolutely. And some of my best friends ever, are still pickleball players that I met when I came here. So yeah, they're all good people. And
so it's going to be hot down there this summer, and you got an RV, a fifth wheel. Are you going to head to cooler climate this summer?
Oh, that was the plan, but not now because I've got rehab. So when the rehab is over, I'm figuring it'll probably be done by August. We're probably going to head out of here and go to California where our kids are. We have one son who still lives in high desert, so we won't be cooling off to visit him, but then the others are up in the Bay Area, so it's always fun to go up there, and I have grandkids there too. So
where do you see the future of pickleball?
Probably just continuing to grow in the same way. I look at the USTA and say, well, it had small beginnings once. I don't know what they were. I don't know its history, but I can guess that pickleball, I always said that pickleball would be on TV someday because it's a very watchable sport. I love watching pickleball, and I guess not everybody does, but I think it's just so much fun to watch, and I always figured it would be there, and then it's happened. I figured it would be an Olympic sport. I still think it may be. It's just, it has no reason not to grow. More and more people are hearing about it. More and more people are becoming involved. It's the kind of sport that's a very addictive sport, as all of us know. So you want to share it with your friends. You want to get out there and play again every day. And there's no reason that it won't just continue to grow, I think, and become something in the same way that tennis is, where you have perhaps a dichotomy between, you've got open players who are going off to Wimbledon in tennis. Well, eventually there may be such things here too. It'll grow.
Is there anything you would like to talk about before we sign off?
Well, first, not to forget to say thank you for this. It's been a great opportunity to be able to talk to you. I'm glad that you got in touch with me. But I don't know. I don't know of anything we haven't covered that I feel the need to say.
How about a tip? The Art of Pickleball. Can you leave us with a pickleball tip?
There's a graphic I made that's on my blog of the pickleball tips that I would say go look for that. It's the 10 things to remember about pickleball. And I still think that that's the crux. If you can do those 10 things, I can't recall them all perfectly now, but it's everything from get the ball in the court, first of all. Get your serve in the court. It's just simple little things. And if you can do those 10 things and put that graphic up on your wall where you're going to see it every day, then you will win in pickleball. And so that's what I'd say. Go to my blog and look for that graphic.
Gale Leach, the Art of Pickleball author, thanks so much for spending an hour with me.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, Jack. It's been a pleasure to meet you.